Welcome to AG's. Elections are about numbers, votes and turnout. But the presidential polls, which are due in India in the month of July, they are going to be slightly different. I'll take you through some of the nuances, some of the facts involved, the process that is generally followed. And there were at least two incidents in the past which cast a shadow on the relationship between the president and the prime minister, which is a very, very important equation. But there were two incidents which happened that somewhat spoiled the entire spectrum, and it has left its lasting impact. But let's talk about the current situation first. While certain names are being bandied around in Delhi's political circles, we have definitive information coming in. Of course, it could change, but that is that the current president, President Ramnath Kovind, and the Vice President Venkaiah Naidu may not get a second term. Incidentally, there has only been one candidate, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, India's first president, who got a second term. No one else ever did. So who will decide the candidates? Again, as per available information, India's most powerful man in the political circles, which is the Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, more or less, it will be his call to decide who the candidates are going to be. Of course, the process of ratification would henceforth then unroll. So we do not know yet as to who are the actual contenders. That will come out when the nominations are filed. Now, let's talk about who has the numbers. Now, the BJP with its allies, which is part of the NDA, has very good numbers, and it is more or less a given situation that whichever candidate the BJP backs, it's a fait accompli, that person will be the next president of India. Of course, who the candidate will be, like I said before, remains to be revealed. Now, where the numbers are concerned, the Presidential Electoral College will be one of the key instruments in this whole process, and this comprises MPs of both houses of parliament and MLAs of all state assemblies. And when you add up their numbers, the BJP and the broader NDA coalition have a definite advantage. They also have the required majority in both houses of parliament to elect the next vice president. There are quite a few hats in the metaphorical ring, as they say. But the interesting part which I felt was, which I want to bring up, is that there is the likelihood, it is still a likelihood of a possible opposition candidate being promoted by the Bihar lobby, and that lobby is being propped up by none other than Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar with the assistance of Lalu Yadav. Nitish Kumar has been a bit unhappy with the BJP over the last couple of months, and that explains why he was at Lalu Yadav's son Tejasvi Yadav's iftar party not once but twice, and he's tried to send a very strong message. So there is likelihood of a candidate being propped up by the Bihar lobby, and they might have the support of West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee and Telangana CM K. Chandrasekhar Rao. So those are the two names who are very strongly supporting the need for an opposition candidate. Now, let me quickly take you back to the past. The first incident which cast a shadow on the delicate equation between the president and the prime minister, that happened between President Gyani Zail Singh and then Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi. There was a certain trust deficit between the two, and that has been recorded in the media coverage of those times, also in a couple of books. So it is pretty much out in the open. I'll take you through what really happened. In fact, things turned so bad that apparently and allegedly there was a plot to topple Rajiv Gandhi, which was known to Zail Singh. A book titled The Untold Truth by General P.N. Hoon, a former army commander of the Western Command. He suggested that in his book. Rajiv himself was not too confident about Zail Singh either, and had reportedly used intelligence bureau officers to snoop on him. He was extremely suspicious of Singh ever since his mother Indira Gandhi was gunned down. And prior to that, when Zail Singh was the Home Minister under Indira Gandhi, he had certain conversations with Khalistani leader Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale, and those conversations were recorded and listened to by Indira Gandhi. That has also been well documented. Now, according to the book, there were 3 para-commando battalions which were asked to move to Delhi and take over the government, then led by Rajiv Gandhi. The book states that some politicians knew about this plot and they were quiet about it. Zail Singh apparently also knew, but he did not pursue it because he felt that such a move by the armed forces to topple and take over the government could have a very disastrous impact on India's democratic polity. And there was also a chance that if such a thing happened, then the armed forces might take over the government, which would be a massive paradigm shift for a country like India. Maulai Krishna Dhar, he is regarded as one of the best intelligence officers. He's passed away. He wrote in his book that it was Rajiv Gandhi who had ordered the snooping of Zail Singh. The book by Dhar was titled Open Secrets, India's Intelligence Unveiled. It spoke about the agency being used for snooping, often by the Gandhis. There was another skirmish which took place between the first President of India, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, and the Prime Minister then, Jawaharlal Nehru, over the Hindu Code Bill. And this brush between the two began even before the bill was formally introduced in Parliament. Prasad wrote to the Prime Minister on September 15, 1951. He spoke about his right to not only examine the bill but present his views. And that was not really liked by Nehru, who treated the letter as a threat, and he also retaliated. And Nehru wrote, and specifically I just want to quote one line, that you also refer to your right to examine the bill on its merits when it is passed by the Parliament before giving your assent to it. This might involve a conflict between the President on the one side and the government and Parliament on the other. Prasad quoted British rules to establish that the President was not all that helpless, and there were restraints on the government and Parliament too. In fact, this strand surfaced 35 years later when Rajiv Gandhi was also questioned, almost on the same lines as to who gave his government the legitimacy to do things for which it did not seek a specific mandate from the electorate. So that's an interesting vignette to remember. And like I said, these two incidents have always cast a shadow on maybe not on the election process, but on who the candidate is and whether the candidate is on the right side of the Prime Minister and what is the kind of equation they share. Before I wind up, let's take a quick look at the process to elect a new president. A president is elected by members of the Electoral College, comprising elected members of Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, elected MLAs, and Union Territories of Delhi and Puducherry. MLCs and nominated members do not form part of the Electoral College. That is a point to remember. Currently, Uttar Pradesh has the highest value of votes in the Electoral College. The BJP was more secure the last time around as they had more MLAs, but that number has dropped, but still not much to worry about. The value, and listen to this carefully, the value of the vote of every MP is fixed at 708, while among states the value of the MLA is at 208. Accordingly, the total value of votes of the UP Assembly is the highest at over 83,000. Now, in terms of numbers, the Electoral College is made of 233 members of Rajya Sabha, 543 members of Lok Sabha, and over 4,000 members of legislative assemblies, a total of 4,896 electors. The presidential election follows the system of proportional representation by means of a single transferable vote. The value of each vote is predetermined in proportion to the population of the respective state based on the 71 consensus, which means that the state which has the highest population has the highest value. Currently, UP holds that position. Now, the BJP-led NDA can flex its political muscle after it won 4 out of 5 states in the last round of the state elections. So the biggest club in the bag is UP, followed by Uttarakhand, Goa, and Manipur. Although the alliance doesn't have a majority in the Rajya Sabha currently, the alliance's presidential candidate could surely have an edge. And by the end of 2022, which is after the process gets over, the BJP would be able to cross over 100 seats for the first time in the 243-chair house. For your information, the Election Commission has announced that voting for India's next president will take place on July the 18th, and the counting of votes will happen on July the 21st. And this time, a total of over 4,809 lawmakers, including 776 parliamentarians and 4,000 legislators, would cast their votes. Political parties cannot issue a whip to their members. And before I conclude, I would like to say that every Prime Minister would like a president to be on their right side. Do remember how the situation has worsened between the governors in the states and the chief ministers of quite a few states who are at loggerheads. There is open dissent, and that is a thing to remember. That is something which is highly avoidable, but it is happening. But that is another story for another day. Let's now keep a sharp eye out on the presidential elections. I'll be back with more. Thanks for watching HE's Ace.